Hey everyone, Lois aka Spider-Man 1991 here. Last week, one of the biggest mysteries of DC Rebirth was solved in Action Comics number 987. The identity of Mr. Oz, the mysterious figure who's been in Superman's life, has been revealed. Spoiler alert if you have not read the issue, but I will be talking about it in this video alone. I didn't bring it up in my weekly video just because I didn't want to spoil it there. So in this video, I am going to discuss it, my theories, what I think is going to happen. If you don't know who it is, go out and read that issue, then come back and watch this video because I will spoil it. And spoiler in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Oz is actually Superman's Kryptonian father, Jor-El. Now what does this mean? What does this mean for the Superman character? Where's the direction the story arc could go? Also, how could this tie into DC's Watchmen event known as the Doomsday Clock this November? Let's discuss. Why exactly would Mr. Oz, Jor-El, be a good fit for the Mr. Oz identity? Well, I think this is a good way to go back to the biggest change in Superman's character since Rebirth, and that is he now has his own son. A lot of stories coming out of the Superman title have focused on Clark's style of parenting, and usually whenever Clark has a parenting moment or when he needs to figure something out, he'll often think of how his Earth father, Jonathan Kent, raised him and dealt with him. And honestly, and also the only real ideas Clark has about Jor-El as his father is just what Jor-El programmed into the Fortress of Solitude. Now, for years, Superman's idea of Jor-El has always just been the scientist who tried to save his planet, but no one would listen to him. So, in order to save the only life that mattered to him, his son, Jor-El decided to send him to a planet where he would stand a chance. And in this case, and usually stories in the past have often shown Jor-El either looking at Earth or visiting Earth and realizing that, you know, this planet does have humanity. And Earth does have potential, and this would be a good place to send my son once Krypton's destroyed or something. This can honestly be a good in-canon story about of Superman meeting Jor-El for like the first time, and also kind of realizing what kind of man his father is now. Although this doesn't necessarily appear to be time travel, because when we do see Jor-El, when Mr. Oz takes off his hood in the final scene and we see that it's Jor-El, he's still got gray hair and half of his face is scarred, obviously due to, and it's green scarring, which obviously hints at kryptonite radiation. So I think the idea of Mr. Oz being Superman's biological father, the father that he never knew, is a good way to sort of like tie into the whole Superman being a dad now and how this might affect him going forward. Especially because in this issue, Jor-El now has some sort of hatred for humanity. The last issue of Action Comics had Jor-El as Mr. Oz enacting his plan where he triggered a bunch of humans into going into rage fit, into giving into their own inner repressed rage that caused a bunch of disasters that Superman had to stop. Unfortunately, Superman wasn't quick enough to get to all of them. So I think the reason Jor-El did this, that he explains that as he's doing this, is because he believes humanity is unworthy of the gift of Superman and his family. Does this mean that Jor-El hates humanity as a whole? Not necessarily. Now, what I mean by that is, I think he's disgusted at the decision that humanity has made as a majority, but there might be a few humans he doesn't detest. An example would probably be Lois Lane. Jor-El says that humanity doesn't deserve Superman's family. He doesn't say, doesn't deserve my son, doesn't deserve Superman and his son. He says his family. So I'm assuming that includes Lois. And I can understand how Jor-El might respect Lois in a way. I mean, Lois, she does the right thing. She's an impressive journalist. She does whatever she can to get the truth. So I think I'm pretty sure Jor-El might have some respect for Lois in that sense. Also, she's the mother of his grandson. And in a previous story arc in Action Comics that involved the Superman Revenge Squad, when John has to pilot a Kryptonian warship in order to fight General Zod, Jor-El actually, as Mr. Oz, is able to communicate with John and help him to pilot the ship in order to do some damage to Zod. So clearly Jor-El doesn't care if his grandson is half human, and besides, he's a scientist. Of course, he would accept, that Clark would have to breed with a similar species in order to have an offspring. Nevertheless, I think that this changes Jor-El in a big way because, like I said earlier, past versions have always shown Jor-El having respect for humanity, and that the reason why Superman was sent to Earth is because Jor-El chose that as a good destination because of humanity's capacity for love and empathy and everything. But clearly now that he spent some time and seeing what humanity has done, I think it's clear that he has changed his opinion, though. And I think that is a good storytelling point. Now, what is Jor-El's master plan as Mr. Oz? What did he hope to achieve? Well, I think as far as I can tell, the one thing he wanted to do was protect Clark. I mean, think about it. All we've seen Mr. Oz do is imprison Superman's more powerful enemies, such as Doomsday, Mr. Mxyzptlk. He went and pretty much attacked Superman's other enemies, like Lex Luthor, and stole Metal's kryptonite heart. So I think in a way, I think that's probably Jor-El's main motivation right now. However, while that is his main motivation, I don't think it's his only one, because if you remember in Detective Comics, he has Tim Drake, aka Red Robin, as a prisoner. So why exactly would he kidnap Tim Drake? Well, this leads into my whole idea that I think Jor-El is working with someone else, someone who is possibly tied to the Watchmen story arc Doomsday Clock. And let me go back to when Mr. Oz has Tim in his cell. He says to him, and I quote, "You are reconnecting threads that cannot be reconnected. You are so loved, so deeply intertwined. It became crucial that we take you off the field." We. So obviously Jor-El is working with someone, which sort of makes sense because during the arc Superman Reborn, when we saw Mr. Mxyzptlk in prison, we see Jor-El having this huge fortress on another planet. So it's kind of impossible that he would be able to build that on his own. Jor-El does say we, so like I said, he's working with someone. So who is that? Well, I actually have two theories behind, two suspects, and they are both characters from Watchmen. The first one is the most obvious, Dr. Manhattan. How could they be working together? Well, unfortunately, the lenticular cover for the next issue of Action Comics 988 was shown online, and lenticular covers have like two images. You hold them one way, you see one image, and the other another image. Well, basically what we see is Jor-El and Lara prepping Clark's Kal-El ship for launch. Then when you turn to the next image, you see the ship shooting away as Krypton's exploding. Lara's dying in the explosion, but Jor-El is being teleported away by blue energy. Now, of course, blue energy, Dr. Manhattan, that's an easy explanation. But the question is, why would Dr. Manhattan take Jor-El, and what exactly does he want him for? Well, my guess is Dr. Manhattan made a deal with Jor-El that he would save his life and allow him to continue to help protect his son in exchange for possibly staying hidden away from from the heroes of the DC universe. It does sort of make sense, but it's kind of weird that we've always had this portrayal of Dr. Manhattan being near omnipotent. It is a logical explanation, but doesn't quite. But I feel like it could easily be have some holes poked through. Another suspect that I have is Adrian Vedic, aka Ozymandias. In fact, Vedic was everyone's primary suspect for who Mr. Oz was before we got the reveal that he's Jor-El. Now, Vedic could be working with Jor-El to help figure out a way to stop Dr. Manhattan. That could explain why Jor-El's been making these super prisons that would hold Superman's more powerful enemies, not just to protect his son, but to also show Vedic that he's working on a way to imprison Dr. Manhattan. Also, Vedic's Ozymandias alias could be how Jor-El came up with the Mr. Oz alias. Okay, my drawback with the Ozymandias theory is that while the motivation feels strong, it just doesn't give us a good explanation as to how Vedic could have saved Jor-El in the first place. So, while I think that is a strong theory in terms of motivation, it just doesn't, the means just don't add up. So, I'm going to say that ultimately, if I had to pick between one or the other, I would probably say Dr. Manhattan's the one responsible and Jor-El's primary benefactor. So, that's all I got right now. All of these, though, are just theories that I have. They'll probably be, I think by the time this video is uploaded, it'll be a few days away from the next issue of Action Comics, which will hopefully give us more details about Jor-El's return and how he survived Krypton, and also what's going to happen. But what do you guys think? Who do you think Jor-El is working for? Do you think it's Dr. Manhattan? Do you think it's Adrian Vedic? Do you think one of those partnerships could be the reason why that leads into the Doomsday Clock story arc this November? So again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, check out my social media links, also in the description below. Thank you again for watching. Remember to stay subscribed and notified. I'm Spider-Man 1991 saying, see you later.